I transmigrated into a tragic romance novel as the White Moonlight, the first love destined to die young. The original character has terminal cancer and is about to kick the bucket. According to the plot, after I die, the male lead will go insane with grief. He will find a substitute who looks exactly like me, and that is where the twisted love story begins. I sighed deeply. In my real life, I was a genuine billionaire. I don't know why I woke up in this trashy script. The system told me I have to be passionately in love with the male lead and despise the female lead for being a social climber. It said once I die, I can return to my world. Then, it vanished. Right now, Julian Sterling, my childhood sweetheart, was buzzing in my ear. Serena, let's go get spicy hot pot. I snapped back to reality and smiled gently. How about we try something new? Let's try the tomato broth instead. The female lead cannot eat spicy food, but in the original story, to be like me, she forced herself to eat it until she developed severe stomach ulcers. Since I know I won't live long, I don't want anyone to suffer because of my ghost. Inside the restaurant, the steam rose in the air. Julian sat across from me. I ate slowly. The corners of my lips curved up. Tomato broth is actually better than the spicy one. Sometimes you have to try new things to find what is better. Julian is sensitive. He noticed something was off. Serena, what's wrong? I shook my head and smiled. Nothing. I never told anyone about my terminal illness. I don't want them to worry. Suddenly, my eyes were drawn to a girl standing outside the window. In the freezing New York winter, she was wearing a thin coat, holding a basket of wild orchids. Her face was pale from the cold. What shocked me most was that she looked exactly like me. From her eyes to her lips, it was like we were cast from the same mold. This must be the female lead. I walked out of the restaurant in my high heels. I smiled at her. You look like me. It must be fate. I ordered too much food. It would be a waste. Come in and eat with me. I will buy all your flowers. I saw a flicker of hope in her eyes. I took her hand and led her inside. After eating, the girl wove the wildflowers into 2 bracelets and gave them to me. Thank you, beautiful sister. I looked at her innocent face. Why are you selling flowers in this weather? She looked embarrassed. My name is Stella Moon. I got accepted into the finance program at Columbia University, but my mom said we have no money and girls don't need degrees. She hid my ID and forced me to work. I have to sell flowers to save up for tuition. I was stunned. In the novel, Stella is described as uneducated trash. Turns out she was an honor student forced to drop out. I pulled out a bank card. Listen to me. I am Serena Vance of Vance Enterprises. If you agree to work for my company for 10 years after you graduate, this $100,000 is your signing bonus. Stella stared at me, then at the card. She burst into tears. I promise. I will never quit. Thank you. I patted her head. Julian watched silently. Serena, he said, Vance Enterprises doesn't need charity cases. You are too kind. I just smiled. If Stella has a high education, no one will laugh at her later. Except for the fact that I am dying, everything is becoming perfect. September arrived. It was freshman orientation at Columbia. I was invited to speak as a distinguished alumna. I stepped out of my Rolls-Royce in a black dress. Suddenly, a shrieking voice pierced the air. Stella Moon, you ungrateful brat! How dare you sneak off to college? Do you want to starve your family? I frowned. I pushed through the crowd. I saw Stella crying. A rat-faced woman was dragging her by the hair. I let you finish high school so you could get a higher bride price to pay for your brother's wedding. Not for you to waste money here. You selfish witch! Stella cried out in pain. Mom, please, I will help brother later. The woman raised her hand to slap Stella. I stepped in and caught her wrist. So the top student is just a tool for your son's wedding? How amusing. The woman froze when she saw my expensive clothes. Miss, don't interfere. This girl is ungrateful. She found a rich sponsor and forgot her mother. Stella looked at me, trembling. I held her hand. Don't be afraid. I looked at the woman. Stella's tuition is paid by me. After graduation, she will earn millions at Vance Enterprises. The woman's greedy eyes lit up. Millions? Oh, Stella, why didn't you say so? Mommy supports you. I signaled my assistant. He brought a black leather bag. I took out a stack of cash and threw it directly into the woman's face. Smack. Let's make a deal. If you apologize to Stella right now, this is yours. The woman fell to her knees immediately. Daughter, Mommy was wrong, I continued coldly. But Stella's contract says she cannot give a penny of her salary to her family. If she does, she is fired. The woman's face went dark. I patted the black bag. However, if you sign over full custody and agree to never contact her again, the money in this bag is yours. The woman nodded frantically. Deal. Deal. As soon as she signed, I picked up the bag and dumped the cash over her head. Take the money and get lost. If I see you near Stella again, your son will end up in prison. The crowd went wild. Online forums exploded. The title read, Gentle Heiress Smacks Toxic Mom with Cash to Save Scholar. Inside the car, the doctor treated the wound on Stella's forehead. She looked at me with teary eyes. Sister, I will pay you back one day. I shook my head. No need. I will protect you. After the incident with Stella's mother, I walked up to the podium to give my speech. Cameras flashed blindingly. I stood tall in my black dress, looking out at the sea of young students. I have one message for you all, I said into the microphone, my voice steady. Every woman is a flower waiting to bloom. Some bloom early, some bloom late. But do not let prejudice bury you. In this world, they say a quiet woman is weak, but a strong woman is too much. They are wrong. I looked directly at Stella, who was sitting in the front row with a bandage on her forehead. Her eyes were red, but they shone like stars. You define your own worth, I continued. A relationship is never just about one person saving another. It is about two equals standing together. In the original novel, Stella was constantly mocked for being unworthy of Julian. I wanted to make sure that in this life, no one would dare say that again. From that day on, I officially took over the daily operations of Vance Enterprises. I brought Stella with me everywhere. She wasn't just an intern. She was my shadow. I let her sit in on board meetings, analyze financial reports, and scout investments. Stella was brilliant. Her eyes were sharp. Serena, she pointed at a file one day. We should invest in this niche ecotourism startup. It looks small, but the data shows high retention. I listened to her. We invested. The project exploded in value within 3 months. Stella wasn't a charity case, she was a prodigy. But as Stella flourished, I withered. My terminal illness was progressing. I lost my appetite. Everything tasted like ash, except for the soup Stella brought me every evening. One night, I found Stella asleep on my office sofa. Her laptop was open. I glanced at the screen. It wasn't business data. It was a Google search history. Recipes for cancer patients with no appetite. How to stop coughing up blood? Is rapid weight loss in your 20s normal? I froze. She knew. Or at least she suspected I was sick. I gently covered her with a blanket. She woke up, rubbing her eyes. Stella, I whispered, you don't have to do this. I don't have much time left. Don't waste your youth on a dying woman. Stella grabbed my hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong. I want to, she said. You saved me. Now let me save you, or at least make you happy. Her warmth seeped into my cold hands. I realized then why Julian loved her in the original story. It wasn't just her face. It was her heart. She was pure light. I started distancing myself from Julian. I loved him, or at least, the original host loved him deeply. But I didn't want him to watch me rot. I wanted him to get used to a world without me. That night, a thunderstorm raged outside. My phone lit up. A message from Julian. Serena, I miss you. 5 words. They broke my heart. In the original timeline, after I died, Julian stopped playing the piano, his passion. He became a cold, ruthless business machine. I didn't want that for him. I agreed to one last date. A private cinema. I chose a tragic romance movie. When the heroine died on screen, I leaned on Julian's shoulder. Julian, I said softly, if I'm not here one day, promise me you'll live well, get married, have kids. Julian stiffened. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Serena, he said, his voice hoarse, you are young. Don't say things like that. He was angry. He was scared. I laughed it off, hugging him tight. I said, I'm just joking. We spent the afternoon painting pottery together. I watched the sunlight hit his focused face, memorizing every detail. Goodbye, my love. That evening, I returned home to an empty house. Stella wasn't there. She always greeted me at the door. Panic set in. I called my head of security. Find her, now. An hour later, I received a location. A dark alleyway downtown. I arrived in my Rolls-Royce. My bodyguards had surrounded the alley but hadn't moved in. I walked past them. In the corner, huddled against the brick wall, was Stella. Her clothes were torn. She was holding a bloody box cutter, shaking violently. Stella, I called out, it's me. She looked up. Her eyes were wild, filled with terror and rage. Clatter. The knife fell from her hand. Serena, she sobbed. I think I caused trouble for you again. I hugged her, not caring about the blood or the dirt. Who? I asked. One word. Cold as death. Stella told me. It was Lucas Hayes, the spoiled son of the Hayes family, new money in the city. He had cornered her, trying to force himself on her because she was aloof at school. She stabbed him in self-defense, and he ran away. Lucas Hayes? I sneered. He isn't trouble. He's an ant. I took her home. The next morning, I drove Stella to the university. As we walked onto campus, a girl blocked our path. It was Linda, the student advisor, a snob who sucked up to the rich. Stella, Linda shrieked, you have some nerve coming here. You stabbed Lucas Hayes. His family is here and they are going to sue you until you rot in jail. She smirked, looking at me. And who is this? Another charity case? I blinked. I said, I am Serena Vance, and Stella is under my protection. Linda's face turned pale. The Vance family name was royalty in New York. I marched Stella straight to the president's office. Inside, Mr. Hayes, Lucas's father, was shouting. He yelled, "She is a violent criminal. Expel her. My son is injured." Lucas was lying on the sofa, bandaged, acting like he was dying. I kicked the door open. "Mr. Hayes," I said, "if you want to sue, send the letter to the legal department of Vance Enterprises. We are ready to go to court." The room went silent. Mr. Hayes looked at me, sweating. He knew my company had the best sharks in the city. "Ms. Vance," he stammered, "it's just a misunderstanding between kids. Lucas is hurt." "Your son tried to assault my employee," I said, my voice cutting through the air. Stella acted in self-defense. "If you pursue this, I will countersue for attempted sexual assault, harassment, and emotional distress. I will bury your company in legal fees until you are begging on the street." Lucas jumped up from the sofa, forgetting his injury. "She's lying. She thinks she's better than everyone. That's why I wanted to teach her a lesson. He just admitted it." I looked at the university president. "Did you hear that? He admitted to targeting her." I turned to Stella. She looked scared. "Stella," I said firmly, "do not bow your head. If we let them go today, they will bully you tomorrow. We fight." I looked at Mr. Hayes. "See you in court." I dragged Stella out. That afternoon, I took her to a scenic overlook in the Hudson Valley. We drank hot chocolate and looked at the city skyline in the distance. "Serena," Stella whispered. "Thank you." The Vance family just donated 3 new libraries to this university, I said. You don't need to be afraid of anyone. You are powerful, Stella. Stella smiled. For the first time, she looked truly free. Winter deepened. My condition worsened rapidly. I was coughing up blood. The doctors said I wouldn't survive the winter. And of course, when the lion is sick, the hyenas circle. My cousin, Lance Vance, started making moves. He went to my father, demanding 40% of the company shares. He claimed that since I was dying, the company needed a strong male heir. My father kicked him out, but Lance didn't stop. He colluded with rival companies to attack our stock price. I lay in my hospital bed, listening to the news. Julian was furious, he said. Lance is a snake. He is attacking while Uncle is vulnerable. I looked at the TV screen. Lance was giving a press conference acting like the savior of Vance Enterprises. I need to stop him, I rasped. Stella was sitting by my bed peeling an apple. She stopped. Serena, let me handle it. I looked at her. The shy girl who sold flowers in the snow was gone. In her place was a woman with eyes of steel. I smiled weakly. Dad, I called my father. Come to the hospital. Bring the lawyers. When my father arrived, I handed him a document. A share transfer agreement. I was transferring my 20% of the company and convincing my father to transfer his voting rights to Stella. My father was shocked. To Stella? An outsider? She's not an outsider, I said. She's the only one who can save us. Lance will destroy the company. Stella will build it. I looked at Stella. Are you ready to be the CEO? Stella stood up. She didn't flinch. I won't let you down, Serena. I will protect your legacy with my life. My father signed the papers. The next day, Julian escorted Stella to the company headquarters. Together, the male lead and the female lead walked into the boardroom to face the villain. They were a power couple. And I? I was just the dying girl in the hospital bed, watching them on the monitor. But I smiled, because I knew they would win. Stella took over Vance Enterprises. It was not easy. Lance Vance and the old board members attacked her relentlessly. They cut off supply chains. They pulled investments. They spread rumors that the company was a sinking ship without a Vance at the helm. Stella did not flinch. She took a leave of absence from Columbia University. She moved her office into my hospital room. Day and night, she sat by my bed. She was buried in contracts and financial reports. She made calls in a hushed voice so she would not wake me. One night, I woke up. The room was dim, lit only by the glow of her laptop. I saw her staring at the screen. Her eyes were bloodshot and hollow. The vibrant girl I saved was fading under the pressure. Stella, I whispered weakly. Rest, please. She shook her head. I can't. I just want to make you happy. I want to show you that your choice wasn't a mistake. I reached out and touched her hand. My skin was almost translucent now. I said, You don't need to prove anything to me. I already believe in you. Stella bit her lip, holding back tears. Finally, she closed her laptop. She rested her head on the side of my bed. She whispered, Just a little longer, Serena. I will fix everything. And she did. With Julian's support and her own brilliance, Stella outmaneuvered Lance. She secured new investors from overseas. She stabilized the stock price. She fired the traitorous board members one by one. Vance Enterprises was safe. Winter deepened. The snow outside the hospital window was thick and white. New Year's Eve was approaching. My body was giving up. I spent 18 hours a day sleeping. When friends visited, I barely had the strength to open my eyes. One morning, I woke up coughing violently. My chest felt like it was on fire. I grabbed a tissue and covered my mouth. When I pulled it away, the white tissue was soaked in bright red blood. The door opened. Stella walked in with a bouquet of red roses. She saw the blood. She froze. The roses fell from her hands, scattering petals on the floor. The dam broke. She rushed to my side, grabbing my hand. She sobbed uncontrollably. "Sister," she cried, "you are such a good person. Why? Why do you have to die?" "It's not fair," I smiled, though it hurt to breathe. "It's okay, Stella. My life was short, but it was worth it." She looked at me, devastated. She looked like a lost child. I patted her head. "Don't cry. Tomorrow is the annual charity gala. It is the biggest event of the year. I want you to go." She shook her head violently. "No, I'm staying with you." I squeezed her hand. "You have to go. You are the face of Vance Enterprises now. I want to see you shine on TV before I go. Please, do this for me." Stella wiped her eyes. She took a deep breath. "Okay," she whispered. "I promise. I will make you proud." After she left to prepare, I summoned the last of my strength. I asked the nurse to bring me a pen and 3 blank cards. I wrote 3 letters, one for my parents, telling them I love them and not to mourn, one for Stella, telling her she is my pride and joy, and one for Julian. Writing them took every ounce of energy I had left. My hand shook with every word. After sealing the envelopes, I placed them on the nightstand. I laid back against the pillows. Darkness was creeping in at the edges of my vision. I fell into a deep, dark sleep. New Year's Eve arrived. I woke up near sunset. The hospital room was quiet. I turned on the TV to the live broadcast of the annual charity gala. There she was, Stella. She wasn't wearing her usual modest clothes. She was wearing a fiery red evening gown. Her lips were painted a bold crimson. She looked powerful. She looked like a queen. She stood on the stage, facing the cameras. "Tonight," Stella announced, her voice ringing clear, "I am donating $10 million to the Rural Education Fund." The crowd gasped. "I do this," she continued, looking directly into the camera lens, "in honor of the person who changed my destiny. I hope this kindness creates a ripple effect. I hope it brings her peace and happiness wherever she goes." The host asked, "Who is this person?" Stella smiled. A confident, radiant smile. "She is the best person I have ever met. Serena Vance." I watched from my bed, tears streaming down my face. She did it. The girl who was once dragged by her hair by her own mother was now the most powerful woman in the room. I had lived to rewrite the plot. Julian was there too, standing in the wings, watching Stella with respect. Not as a substitute for me, but as a partner. I felt a profound sense of relief. My parents were safe. The company was safe. Julian wouldn't be a broken man. And Stella was flying. Outside the window, the first fireworks of the new year exploded. Boom, crackle. Bright colors lit up the snowy sky. Red, gold, green. My eyelids felt heavy. The sound of the fireworks merged with Stella's voice on the TV. "It's time to go home," I thought. I closed my eyes, and I didn't open them again. Julian rushed to the hospital as soon as the gala ended. He burst into the room, breathless. "Serena!" he called out. But the room was silent. The monitor was flat. I was gone. On the nightstand, next to the vase of red roses, sat 3 letters. Julian's hands trembled as he picked up the one with his name. He opened it. "My dearest Julian," it read. "Happy New Year. If you are reading this, I am already gone. Please do not be sad for too long. My last wish for you is simple. Be happy. Be free." In the stories, they say true love means grieving forever. I say that is nonsense. True love means wanting the other person to live a full life. If you meet someone who makes your heart beat again, do not hesitate because of me. Step forward. Love her. Treat her well. Knowing you for 21 years was the greatest joy of my life. Now go live the rest of yours. Love, Serena. Julian fell to his knees, clutching the letter to his chest. He cried deep, guttural sobs. But they weren't tears of despair. They were tears of release. He finally understood. I didn't want him to build a shrine to my memory. I wanted him to build a future. Behind him, Stella and my parents stood in the doorway, weeping silently. 1 year later. The snow had melted. Spring had arrived. Vance Enterprises was thriving under Stella's leadership. She was known as the Iron Lady of the business world, but she always kept a vase of fresh flowers on her desk. Julian returned to playing the piano. He started a foundation in Serena's name to support young artists. He and Stella became close friends and partners. Maybe in time, something more. But it wouldn't be a toxic substitute love. It would be something new, built on mutual respect and the shared memory of the girl who saved them both. As for me, I floated in the void, watching them one last time. The system voice returned. Mission complete. The female lead is saved. The male lead is redeemed. You have successfully altered the tragic ending. Are you ready to go home? I looked back at the world I was leaving. The flowers were blooming. The sun was shining. I smiled. I'm ready. This is a fictional story collected and edited by us for entertainment and educational purposes, to promote emotional awareness, empathy, and understanding. Absolutely no intention of hatred, offense, or harm. The story reminds us that even when fate writes a tragedy, we hold the pen to rewrite the ending. Serena refused to be a victim of the plot. Instead, she used her remaining time to lift others up. She taught us that the greatest legacy isn't money or power. It's the impact we have on the people we leave behind. But what about you? If you knew you had limited time left, what would be the one thing you'd want to change in the world? Would you seek revenge? Or would you plant seeds for a better future like Serena? Please leave your opinion in the comments below so we can discuss it together. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.